Howdy, it's RB and Leanne with AFK Days, and today we're going to fix a problem with our little guy Max trailer. Oh, no! The problem is, about 11 months ago, we decided to be nice to ourselves and get ourselves a brand new fan for our little guy Max. We chose the Maxxair Fan, and I'll put the model down below. We finally got it installed. We had a dealer service center install it for us, and apparently they did an okay job. We went camping with it once. It worked great. The second time we went out, it did this. It would spin for a few seconds, stop, and beep 6 times, just like that. We looked online and they said that the Maxxair Fan does not like to see voltages in the 13s. I think it's like 12.8 or 12.9 at max. It was under warranty, so we called and told them the problem, and they said, well, the engineers say it's a motor, but I think it's a circuit board, so I'm going to send you both. And he did, and we got them in. Today we are staying at an RV park in Port Aransas, Texas, and it's a little hot outside, so we decided to stay in and be productive with the trailer. So we're going to install the circuit board. I also picked up a voltage regulator, which the internet says is a good thing to kind of help regulate what the trailer sends to the fan circuit, and we might also install the motor. Leanne's behind the camera, Milo's supervising. Let's get cracking. These are the tools we'll use. Sockets to remove the motor, voltmeter to configure the volt regulator, drill because I'm too lazy for hand screwing, nite ties to keep wires out of the way, cutter to remove existing nite ties, X bit for removing the fan, double-sided tape for attaching DC voltage regulator to the side of the wall and also for helping with wire management, the small screwdriver set for configuring the voltage regulator, uses a small common screw head, and then a small Phillips screwdriver to get to a couple of screws that you normally need to be on the roof to reach, but with this you can do it from inside of the little guy Max. So this is what it looks like. So the first thing we need to do is remove the screen cover, which has these little twisty knobs. Let's see if we can break something. And then it just comes off. Then the next thing is we have these 4 screws to pull the fan off, and you also need to remove the knob. So when I say screwdriver, I mean an electric screwdriver. Well, more came out there than I thought. When you're using an electric screwdriver, it's always good to go slow. It's also a good idea to make sure that the toilet lid is closed on the toilet. Hey, that actually worked. Okay, we'll leave that hanging right there. Carefully jimmy out here. I'm not really sure what that was. Okay. This is the old circuit board. Next we'll unplug it and pull it out. Before we start touching wires, let's make sure this circuit is dead. You need to find the circuit breaker for your trailer that controls that circuit. On the 2019 Little Guy Max, it is this top one, the non-clear blue. So I'm going to pull this, and then that'll cut the power to the fan. Now we can touch it and work with it without having to worry about it too much. Now that the fuse is pulled, we can touch the wires and not be worried about unexpected shocks. Okay, so they've used some ties here to hold it in place, so we'll need to cut these ties before we can fully remove this from the system. So the ties are cut. I've unplugged it from one of the mains. There's a temperature sensor here. Okay, this goes to the motor, this goes to the trailer. So they solder those directly on. We'll just cut these wires. Ta-da! And now we've thoroughly broken something. I feel better already. We're putting in a DC voltage regulator, and we'll just need to strip these and attach it to the regulator. And I'm going to try this without an actual stripper. Now that we've stripped the wires, we've attached it to the DC volt regulator. This is the one that I saw in a forum that somebody recommended. So what this little device does is any voltage that comes through here greater than what this is set for will restrict it down to what it's set for on the output. So this is a way to keep that circuit board that is very sensitive to anything over 12.8, 12.9 from seeing anything that high. We're going to set this at an 11 so that the circuit board will not see anything above 11 volts. So now that we have it configured, we're going to put the fuse back in the trailer for this circuit, break out the voltmeter, and start experimenting. Now that the DC regulator is plugged in correctly and the fuse is back in the trailer, we see the red light. The red light indicates that the trailer is wired correctly into the DC regulator. Now, the next part is to adjust how much DC current is being regulated. To increase the amount that it's not being regulated to make the voltage higher on the voltmeter at the bottom, you rotate this screw to the left. You rotate it to the right, it will decrease. One pin on a hot wire and one pin on one of the grounds. And so the left 3 are hot, the right 3 are ground. As you can see, I have meter plugged in and we're getting 12 volts, just right over 12 volts. Now that we have the voltage regulator sorted out, we pull the fuse and attach the circuit board back to the fan. Alright, so there are 3 screws holding the circuit board in to the fan housing. Again, alright. Since the sensor is good, I'm going to leave that there. Just unplug it from the board. You just grab and pull it out like that. So first we plug back in the cable that does the control panel from the outside of the fan. Make sure you get the pins in the right slots. And it's important that you get them all going about the same distance or you'll bend the pins. Okay. Then let's get the 3 screws back into. Alright. So now we're ready to hook the motor back up. So that didn't work. It came on, spun for about 10 seconds, and then did the same old thing. Guess it's not the circuit board. So now we'll start replacing the fan motor. This has already come out. There's a little hole right here for an Allen wrench. You twist that and it pops right out. And then just feel the cool air. Why do I have an extra extension on here? I don't know. It just seemed like the right thing to do. We're going to try to do this without getting on top of the camper because we're in a park where I don't have access to a ladder and I'm sure that would raise suspicion. There we go. Alright, so I need to cut the things there. The motors, cut these ties, and yeah, we'll see what's next. So there are 2 screws that are in that area that kind of keep the wire in there. Those need to come out, and then we should be golden. So I got a screwdriver.
This is why they recommend to do it from the top.
Yeah, anybody could do it from the top. That's the piece. Those are the screws, and that's the screwdriver that got it done. Before you attempt this, I recommend you raising the roof up as high as it can go before you take the knob off. Who says you have to go on the roof? I did this from my bathroom. pick up your trusty socket with the extra long extension that you don't necessarily need. Tighten it down. Ta-da! So we have the fan motor sitting in there. There's no fan on. Everything's wired up. We're just testing it out. And so far, it's looking good. 12.02 volts. I am not ready to declare this a success yet, because I've had my heart broken many times by technology. Start putting the thing back together. Now it's time for the real acrobatic part, putting this piece back in place where I can't see anything about what's going on. So my strategy here is to a lot of luck. Yep, back in place. That cover, there's 2 screws. It took a lot of elbows, but it got done without having to get on the roof. Take that, internet. It's back in there. Remember that there's a notch on the fan shaft, the motor shaft that comes down, and that's the side where the Allen wrench, the Allen bolt or whatever this is called, goes on. So that way it has a nice flat surface and it can't move around a whole lot when it's spinning. I don't think Leanne's gonna like me very much if this fan falls off while she's sitting in here. All right, Leanne, you want to put the fuse back in so we can test the fan?
Okay.
And we'll see the red light on the voltage regulator come on, and then we hear the fan beep. We hear the fan beep again, and we hit power. Now there's several things we need to do. We need to pull the fuse, we need to attach the voltage regulator somewhere in here probably. I think Leanne's got a solution for that. We need to unscrew these, shorten the wires, and then screw them back in. Yeah, so that's what's next. Okay, I've trimmed the wires, probably about 6-7 inches off. I did leave enough to go from here to here with maybe a little bit of extra. We have now put some double-sided tape, and I'm going to slot it in right up here. Alright, so I want to get this as high up as I possibly can to keep it from interfering with the fan blade. Don't do them all the way in, just to make sure you don't get wires in the way. And you can still see what you're doing even on up to the last screw. All right. I feel like I'm about to break the Allen wrench, but I don't want this coming off in the middle of somebody taking a shower. All right, let's test it out. Here we go. So far, so good. The last thing to do is to put the screen on. Gotta make sure those things are facing out and twist those things in. Make sure they're aligned, and we're off to the races. We've never actually been able to use this successfully for an entire trip, so we still have to understand how it's being used. It can bring air in, it can suck air out, and it has like 7 or 8 different settings, and there's something about a temperature sensor. Not really sure. But now that it's fixed, we can learn. And that's what it takes to replace the circuit board and motor on a Maxxair fan in a Little Guy Max. If you have any questions, put them in the comments below. This was a couple-hour job, but not too bad. The biggest issue was getting to the motor and configuring the DC voltage regulator. Otherwise, pretty straightforward. Thanks for following.